Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to set up the tab bar, which is at the root of our application, and we're going to manage all of the navigation stacks. We're going to set those up as well. I'm going to show you just two different ways to set up the navigation stacks, again, because I get a lot of questions about this on my YouTube channel. So far in the last video, we created the app view builder, but this is now this generic code, which you never really need to look at. We just look at the app view from now on. And the app view is going to have our tab bar view and the onboarding view. So we're going to replace this dumb Z stack with the actual tab bar view in this video. So firstly, let's start with the tab bar view. I'm going to right click in our core module and actually create a new folder and just call this the tab bar. And let's actually make it a capital B, tab bar, or maybe tab bar view is probably better. Let's right click and create a new file from template, SwiftUI view, and I will call it a tab bar view. Let's go ahead and click create. Let's hide our root here. All right, so let's compile this to the preview and let's start with our actual tab view. And we're gonna build this with the native tab bar, which I think most SwiftUI apps should use at this point. We're gonna use a tab view and open the brackets here. And we're gonna have three tabs. So let's create just the text. The first tab will be our explore tab. Let's add a tab item so we can have the icon at the bottom. And let's add a label for the icon. And we're gonna look for the title key with the system image here because we're gonna use the native icons. So the title will be explore and this one will be the eyes image. You can see it down here. I'm gonna copy and I'm gonna paste that twice. Explore, this will be our chats view, chats. And for this one, I'm gonna click the plus up here, the symbols tab here, and search for bubble. And I'm gonna go with maybe this icon here, bubble.left and bubble.right.fill. Let's copy that, paste that in here. Let's add one more profile tab and let's make that also say profile. And this will just be the person.fill. So we got our three tabs here and we can see them up here. Before we move forward, I want to talk a little bit about the navigation stack working with the tab view, because this has come up many times in questions on my YouTube channel. It's kind of annoying to work with even after you realize what's going on. But let me explain what we're talking about first. So on the Explore view, I'm going to wrap this in a navigation stack and then put this in the text inside. So since we're in a navigation stack, in theory, this Explore view now can use a navigation title, and let's just call it the Explore view. So we can see it up here. Let's actually wrap all of our tabs in a navigation stack. So I'll move this in here, and then one more navigation stack. Move this in here. I'm going to hold Shift and highlight all of this and Control I to reformat. And then let's add a navigation title to each of these. So this works here. So here we have chats and here we have profile. So when I have three different navigation stacks and one on each tab, I can now have three different navigation bars. So the navigation title is changing perfectly in these three. So if I want to use the native navigation bar, like we're going to use in this application, then having three different navigation stacks is more ideal for your tab bar view. The downside of this, though, which I'll show you now, is that if on maybe the Explore screen we had, let's make a V stack, and let's add a navigation link. Let's just give it a click me, and then we'll go to another view. So with the three different navigation stacks, when I click a navigation link inside this setup, the tab bar is going to remain on top of the child view. So we've now gone to another view and we still have the tab bar here. So I could still switch tabs, and then this is still pushed to the next view, right? And then there is a modifier in SwiftUI now to hide the tab bar, and we can do .hidden for the tab bar. So when we click to that screen, it should hide our tab bar, and then we can come back out and now it should unhide. But this kind of, to me, gets a little bit janky when it's the tab bar is loading and unloading. I don't really like that in most apps. So for the most part, my recommendation is that if you're using the nav bar on each tab, the native nav bar, then you need 3 different navigation stacks. But we need to know that the trade-off there is also that when we go into these child views, the tab bar is still going to display. On the flip side of this, though, you could instead not use the native nav bar and build your own nav bar. Like this nav bar is pretty simple, right? It's an H stack. It's just literally just a text and you push it to the left side of the screen. And so there is a argument for, instead of doing 3 different navigation stacks, we do 1 navigation stack at the root. And let me get rid of these navigation stacks. And I'll get rid of this one as well. And I'll get rid of this one as well. And let's take our whole tab view and put the whole tab view inside 1 single navigation stack. So now I still have my 3 tabs, but when I go and I push to a next destination, the whole tab bar pushes as well, right? So we can see the whole tab bar pushing. And it's not that I'm on the destination with the tab bar still showing. So by wrapping the whole tab view in the navigation stack, I can now push the whole tab bar at once. But the downside of this is that, as you notice, the navigation titles are not working on the 3 tabs. And that's because, based on this declarative setup, SwiftUI thinks that this entire thing is basically 1 tab. So we can just put 1 title here for all 3 tabs. So if you're going with this setup, I would basically recommend not using the native nav bar and instead doing toolbar visibility and just hide the nav bar at all times. This is iOS 18 only, so I guess we could just do the nav bar hidden, true, and then hide the nav bar at all times. And then I would have to just go and I would have to build my own nav bar. So spacer, and then I put a header in this view, like a text explore, font large title, frame max width, infinity, alignment leading. So now I have my own fake kind of nav bar that I would put onto each screen. So there is benefits of both of these routes. The benefit here being that we can push the whole tab bar off the screen, but we're actually going to use the other approach in this app. I think it's a little bit better for most apps and probably the way that it was really meant to be built. So I'm going to undo all of this and let's go back to having 3 different navigation stacks, and I'm going to delete this navigation link, just put text on the screen here with explore, and we're back. All right. I just wanted to show you guys that navigation stack problem because I've gotten questions about it 100 times, and honestly, it sucks that we have to make that trade-off. I hope that they change that in a future version of SwiftUI, but as it stands today, that's just something that we need to decide when we are building the root of our application. All right, let's actually make a SwiftUI view for each of these screens. So I'm going to come over here. Actually, tab bar view, we should just call this tab bar, the tab bar folder. Let's right click on core and create another new folder, and we'll make an explore folder. And then in here, we will create a new file from template, SwiftUI view. Let's call this the explore view. And I'm going to, let's cut this and put the explore view in our tab bar. And let's paste that code back in here. Let's go back. I'm going to do the same thing for chats. So let's right click and create a new folder here. I'm going to call this the chats view, plural chats, because later we're going to have a single chat view. And then let's right click and create a SwiftUI view, chats view. And then again, let's cut this chats view and put the chats view on the screen. Cool. Let's go back into our tab bar one more for the profile view. Let's create a folder, new folder, profile. Let's right click, create a new file from template, SwiftUI view, profile view. And let's cut this, put the profile view on the screen, and we will paste in our profile view here. Great, I'll go back to my tab bar view. I will highlight this and then Control I to format it and just get those tabs in place. While we're working on the profile view, let's jump in here. On the profile view, I'm actually going to add a sheet to display the settings in our application. So every app has like a settings screen. So we're going to need a boolean for @state private var. Let's call this show settings view of type bool. Set it equal to false to start. Now that we're using the native nav bar in this setup, let's add in here maybe a toolbar. And let's add a toolbar item with the placement and a content. The placement will be the nav bar trailing, or actually it looks like that's deprecated. So let's go top bar trailing. And in the content, we're going to put in a button, and let's use the action and the label. For the action, I'll click enter and we'll say show settings view equals true. And in the label, I'm going to put an image with a system name. Let's use the gear, and let's make this a font of headline to make it a little bit bigger. We can see it up here. All right, so when we click on this toolbar, we should show the settings view. So let's add a sheet is presented with content. Let's bind to the show settings view. And then for now, let's just put text settings view. See if it works. Click that. Great. And let's start cleaning up our code, because we're going to build a really big app here. There's going to be tons of code, and I want to keep it clean and organized. All right, and we're going to clean this up in 1 second, but I just got this weird error. My Xcode just froze. I keep getting this warning that says Xcode has unsaved changes, and they ask me to revert the changes. I think what's happening is SwiftLint is running too often and making changes to our files. So what I'm going to do is actually just jump into the project navigator quickly. And I'm going to actually turn on the based on dependency analysis again. This way it will skip incremental builds. We don't really need Swift in every single build. Let's keep that on. I think that'll help that problem. In the profile view, I'm going to come in here and let's create a private var and call this the settings button of type sum view. And I'm going to cut and paste this code. This is the pop-up. I don't know why it keeps happening. Let's revert. Let's cut and paste this in here. We'll put the settings button up here. And then as we continue to build this app, we're going to find that we want to separate the logic between our view and our business logic. And it's basically, what is the difference between the UI and the actual actions? So when you go and you build a button, it tells you the closure is called an action, right? This is the function that's going to run, and that's separate from the label of the view, right? So when we look at the actual code, this label is executing when the button is drawn onto the screen, but this action is executing when the user clicks it. So the UI, which is the button and the label, is separate from this action. This action is running at a different point in time. This is our business logic. So what I'm going to start doing as we build out our app is actually to keep this as clean as possible. I'm going to separate out the business logic from the UI logic. So down here, I'm going to create a private func, and I'm going to call this on settings button pressed, and open the brackets. Let's just stop the live preview for a second. And then in here, I'm just going to call settings view equals true, on settings button pressed, and we'll execute that. Cool. I think that works. Let's press play and see if the settings view shows. Awesome, settings view is here. Let's go ahead and let's take our tab bar view now. Now that we have a tab bar view, we're going to go into our root view, or sorry, our app view. And let's replace this red screen with our actual tab bar view. The last thing we're going to do in this video before we finish is the navigation stack for the onboarding view. So the first screen in our onboarding module is going to be called the welcome screen. That's going to be the screen where the user says like welcome and start or create an account or whatever we had decided to put on that screen. So I'm going to right click and let's create another folder here and call this the welcome. This will be the welcome view. right click and a new file from template here as well. This will be the welcome view. Let's go ahead and click create. And the welcome view is actually going to be much more simpler than our tab bar view. It will just be itself a navigation stack. And we'll put some text that says welcome for now. And we'll put our welcome view in our app view at this section right here. Cool. So now when the user's in our app, they have our tab bar screens that we can go out and build. We can see our settings screen is set up. And then in our app view, we are in a navigation stack here, so we can push to the onboarding flow and through the onboarding flow. Let's remember that the nav stack here is separate from the nav stacks in each of the tab bar views. So we actually have 4 navigation stacks now in our application. And just to jump into the FigJam real quick, our application kind of looks like this right now. So we had our app view, and then we had our tab bar view and our onboarding view. The tab bar view has the 3 tabs, which are each children of the tab bar view. And then the onboarding view has the welcome view. So this is kind of the basic setup of our app. And again, notice how we're just building a tree diagram and everything is dependent on the parents before it. That is the entirety of declarative programming. We're going to talk a little bit more about this and the environment in the next video, but I just wanted to show this. This is kind of the state of where we are at so far. Let's end this video by committing our changes. Option Command C. Let's say feature, and let's say add tab bar and navigation stacks. Let's stage and commit, and let's go ahead and push that up to GitHub. That's all for this one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.